And we're live. Sorry about that, guys. We had a bit of a small problem with the internet just deciding that it wasn't going to work. So that's always fun. Again, welcome to Between Two Keepstars, the show that takes place between two Keepstars, except now it's taking place on an Astrahoos. But, details. I'm joined by three beautiful guests, Cyler, Cyberking, and Jayson. You guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'll start. Cyler, I was on last week's show, and I am the logistics nerd in Concordia, and it's pretty basically it, I guess.
Hi, I'm Jayson, director at Concordiat. Kind of do a lot of little stuff. Been playing since 2012.
And I'm Cyberking. I've been playing this game for a very long time. Recently stopped playing, trying to get back into it. I'm an original director of Horde, one of the first three founding members. I did all the military stuff in Catch, in Aquarius, and in Cloud Ring. Took a hiatus, and now Riker over here is trying to get me back into it.
It's not a matter of trying; it's a matter of when.
Isn't it always like that? It always sucks you back, doesn't it?
That's the thing. You can never really quit Eve, as shown by everybody here.
It always loops back around because you have your friends, right? And you miss your friends. You want to play with your friends, but your neighborhood might change, but your friends are still there, right? So you're like, I want to go back to my neighborhood, even though my neighborhood's all fucked up now because my friends live there. That's what it kind of feels like every single time.
That's exactly the reason why I got back in November. Was our director now, Caleb, who I went to high school with, was like, "Yeah, I'm the CEO of Concordia now. You should come back." It's like, well, that didn't take very much convincing. I'm back.
So what's up with this war? Well, I've never been on this show before. What do we even talk about? So the war, like, what's going on? I have like a nice little filling in of information because I really have no clue. That's how clueless I am. But if I know, maybe we could talk about some stuff.
So a TLDR, Goon, the entirety of the galaxy basically said, "All right, it's time to kill Goon."
Again.
Pretty much. Also, if you want a quick synopsis of what has happened so far, show notes has a nice little TLDR.
Basically, we went in and in a month's time cleared the initiative out of Fountain, which was supposed to be Fortress Fountain, Fortress Delve. And up until this week, it has been pretty much just uncontested.
If leadership is the same as it was when I was playing, then that you kind of expect that to happen. No, they're completely out. Where are they right now in it? If they're out of Fountain,
they moved back down to Delve, I believe, with the goons and the rest of Imperium.
And from their perspective, are they quaking in their boots? Are they holding back?
Smug as can be.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that hasn't changed, Cyber, is that the Mittani is still the Mittani. But instead of Boat, he's got actually a recent current CSM, sitting CSM member, Brisk Rubal, who we actually had on the second show, who's a pretty cool dude, actually. He has this whole shtick where he plays a guy by the name of Fountain Frank, which was a lot like it's basically Baghdad Bob, but with Eve. And it's pretty exciting.
Especially the power structure. And so the power structure inside the Imperium, it's still called the CFC. I don't care if people call it the Imperium, but the power structure in the CFC, it's still basically Mittens. Does Boat do anything except for pretend like he does stuff, or is he just figurehead 2.0 now? What's he do now?
Well, he does now.
Yeah, there's that. But nah, he FCs.
Is he still as bad as he was before?
Hasn't had a successful bombing run yet.
Well, no, he did have one by accident on Test Ravens because Test.
That was so someone actually took over that run. It wasn't him that had the warping. So
I think the I think from what Brisk actually told us, on comms, Boat was like, hey, I'm going to bomb. And everyone was like, don't bomb. I'm going to bomb anyway because I've got electron bombs. And everyone said, Boat, they're Ravens. They're not going to be shield fit. But of course, a good old test decided to shield fit the Ravens. So Boat went in, bombed them. And apparently it was like, guys, they're all shield fit. And that's when Sister Bliss brought in another wave of init bombers and completely wiped the entire test Raven fleet.
So, I mean, two things. First, LOL. Two, they're Ravens. They're not shield tanked. Where have I been? When I was playing, Ravens are usually shield tank. The downside being that their sig radius was massive. What do you do now? You fit the mids with a whole bunch of targeting scripts and stuff like that?
So essentially, one of the ways to kill Keepstars now is you've got Ravens that have like 250 km range.
Push them around, I'm guessing.
Basically, and you armor tank them so that essentially you can have just stupid range. And the idea is you shoot at super long range at Keepstars to keep it paused.
So
especially in the long tie-dye fight.
Has that replaced the whole Titan bashing with Keepstars? I'm sorry if I sound silly, by the way, but this is different to me. Has that replaced the Titans always keeping the Keepstar paused warfare gameplay type?
I haven't seen it yet. I know PanFam hasn't used it in this war yet.
So from a bashing PanFam standpoint, there hasn't been really a need because we're fielding like 300 plus carriers at any given time. And with that many fighters, you're on damage camp anyway. Then we have something like 800 subcaps running around doing their thing. The Raven Doctrine became a thing after we lost the first timer. Was that KVN? I don't know.
That was YTech too. That wasn't us. That was Test lost it.
Yeah, Test lost a bunch of Ravens, which were supposed to pause the timer, but that's where the 250 km range Ravens come into play, because they can just be off the Keepstar away from any hostiles. They have a Jackdaw fleet sitting with them as well to deter any bombers, and they just sit there making sure the Keepstar stays paused.
It's interesting that the YTAC 2 curse struck Test. That's interesting. Everyone who decides to fight in there always has a bad time. The YTAC 2 curse is strong.
Well, yeah, and they were late to the battle by an hour because ProGod was in Highsec and got potted twice.
You gotta watch out for that.
Yeah.
Speaking of ProGod, we I thought I was known as the guy who doesn't fit rigs, but he lost a rigless damnation twice in the same battle.
Hey, rigs and cargo, man. You gotta read the name of the shit that fit. Okay, you gotta throw that shit on there.
It's funny because that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's always what happens. Or you have like a gyro stab in the lows and you're supposed to have a heat sink. One of the two.
But yeah, Ravens that are armor tanked to pause the Keepstar. And the thing is in tie-dye is if you unpause the Keepstar, if that clock starts ticking down, it's going to rep just because of how the Keepstar timer counts down in real time, but tie-dye is so slow. So you have to keep it paused. And that's why you use Ravens at extremely long range, because you don't want to risk not keeping that Keepstar paused.
Mr. Conway, like from a systems and gameplay perspective, like is tie-dye, you said you've been playing for how many months now again after you started again?
Since November.
Since November. So like it's a good amount of time. Like how is the whole tie-dye shitfest going with warfare and stuff? Has it lessened? Is it more? Are battles more spread out? Is it still super focused on one system with 4,000 people? Like from your point of view, how has it been so far?
So from a line member, I don't mind tie-dye as long as I have enough time to sit down and actually do the battle, because it gives me more time to react instead of like target ship number 1, and then by the time I realize target ship number 1, I'm dead from a dozen other ships. So it gives you a little bit of time to react, but it is still very cancerous.
Gotcha.
And fortunately, I think CCP's done a pretty decent job at being able to reinforce nodes. But then when we get big battles like this, where you have 3,000+ people in a system, it's max tie-dye, and
Right.
this was going to be like a 8-hour battle that, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what your day looked like, test messed it all up. But since my short time coming back in November, I really haven't been in too many hardcore 10% tie-dye. And there are two specific times when I'm glad that tie-dye was maxed out, when I was gating from halfway across the universe to get in on was it Jayson? Do you remember how many? It was down in Innsmother, I want to say, the other side of Innsmother, where they lost like 3 Titans and 4 Supers to a stealth bomb lighting a Sino.
Oof, I do not recall that.
Yeah, that was like December, January. I can distinctly remember being on like vacation and seeing pings coming left and right. Like, everybody get down here. We're bumping a Titan off a Fortizar. And I gated all the way down. And the only reason I made it in time to get on the kill mail was because of the tie-dye. So,
Blessing and a curse, right?
yep.
Yeah, one of the rough things about tie-dye is just the fact that these timers do tick at real time according to the world clock. So, in the case with the Raven dying Keepstar, another attributing factor to us losing that was the fact that the fighters were not able to burn 1,000 km within the 15 minutes in real time. Because the tie-dye was at 10% the entire time, the fighters only got like 3/4 of the way there before it repped.
Yeah. So as soon as those bombers killed the Ravens, it was over. Even though, like, in theory, without tie-dye, you could repause the Keepstar, it just doesn't work. So
This
that's
particular
the
Keepstar
bad
was
part.
in which system? This was in YTAC 2, correct?
Yes, that one. Then with the KVN one, which was the node crash with only 2,000 something people in local, that one was rough because we all were able to log back in, and we paused the Keepstar pretty much immediately when it came out. It had like 14 minutes, 40 seconds paused. The earliest person to log in reported it as being like 12 minutes, 12, 13 minutes, something like that. And then by the time you materialize and enter your warp tunnel, you're already in tie-dye. So even before most people landed on grid, the Keepstar repaired because it just took that long to warp out of your safe, like 80 AU off the Keepstar grid, and then align warp back. It was just too late for really anybody to do anything about it.
And then, to make matters worse, CCP still hasn't allowed carriers to reconnect to lost fighters. So if you disconnect from your fighters, they're basically gone. You've lost an entire flight of fighters.
Right. So 2 things, I guess, off of that. One, from a line member's perspective, have the FC is cognizant of the fact that, I mean, the whole tie-dye thing is still kind of, a kick in the butt, kind of a pain in the ass to fight, and sometimes, other times it's a blessing. And have they been doing much to kind of alleviate that? Like maybe do like secondary battles in surrounding systems while the Keepstar fight is going on, for example?
So
Different things like that, skirmishes, gate camps, the whole strategic overview of maybe like a constellation.
yeah, what we did for one of them, the Northern Fountain, was basically had 2 fleets, 2 subcap fleets, 2 or 3, sitting on Titans ready to go outside of system. All we had was our carriers and some bubblers in system, and we were able to kill that entire Keepstar with 0 tie-dye. We signed everybody in right at the end, just to horror, obviously, and that was it. We had 800 people in system while we were killing it with 0 tie-dye. So, and then with this fight, what we did was we went to YTAC 2 first and basically secured gate to Delph, bubbled it up, had carrier fighters on the gate grid ready to go, and then once the Keepstar was ready to go, we jumped directly to that Keepstar in KVN and started hitting it. And the whole point of that was just to limit the amount of people that were able to come straight into Delve and prepare. So they kind of had a slower form up at the beginning, but in the end, it didn't really matter because everybody got there. So
Right, and all that fighting with minimal resistance you guys mentioned, right?
Northern Fountain, yeah, was basically 0 resistance. There was one Keepstar where they had like a fleet and they were just bothering fighters and running around just making it harder, but really this is the last two Keepstars have been the most action, I guess.
And
I like to
Jayson, you're in FC for Horde right now?
Not an FC. I'm just stupid active right now.
Okay, cool.
But like, yeah, all the capital ops, pretty much all those, and yeah, it's kind of interesting seeing how the FCs are reacting and coordinating. Plenty of OpSec stuff going on. But when I gotta say, the FCs that are involved right now, incredibly professional with everything that's going on. When the node crashed, I mean, they were pretty much on comms already like, hey, this is probably what's going to happen, but this is our game plan. These groups aren't going to log in yet. They had it all figured out before anybody knew what was going on. So props to Horde FCs for their coordination on that one.
And I was an FC in Slice right before we came back to Horde, and I was FCing when we first started. So it was interesting that I like to think of this war so far as like a dam, right? And there being a hole in the dam that was properly plugged, and that was the D4K gate. And we could not, for an entire week, get in there and rep that Ansiplex, which was our first goal in the war. And I can remember losing bomber fleet after bomber fleet. Like, we would go in to support test, trying to kill that thing, and it just would not die. At one point, they had like every capital at their disposal just camping that gate. So as soon as you jump the regional gate from LowSec, saber bubbles everywhere, and then you were dead. But once we finally got D4K, it was like the hole in the dam becoming just a mudslide, and all of the lake just crashing through, and up until this week.
How's the morale on the whole Goonian side of things? Because I mean, if they're not going to defend an entire region, I mean, are they smug? Are they ship posting? Like, I mean, there should be something. I'm sure there's propaganda. 'Cause I actually saw some whispered to me over Discord a few times. So I know that there's test propaganda. That's always coming through, right? That's good, in good supply, no shortage there, right? But like on the Goon side, I mean, losing an entire region to one of your coalition members' regions is. It's a pretty big blow. I mean, I'm sure they're just going to turtle up and make Dell hell on earth for everybody for the next month or so. But at the same time, I mean, are they biting?
So I actually have one word for you: floodplain. So how the Matani described it was that Delve Core is their main, is what they're trying to defend, and then all the regions around it are floodplains. Essentially, what's been going on is that the whole war plan is that we clear all the floodplains, so clear all the surrounding regions, and then we attack Delve. One of the things that goons have been saying is that they've basically been making fun of us for attacking the floodplains, and they've especially been making fun of Test for attacking the floodplains and quote-unquote failing. The Matani's biggest thing is that, it used to be that Test doesn't form, and they're pretty much just useless, where it's quite the opposite in reality. Test has been forming up quite a bit, and they've been taking the fight to goons. Granted, they haven't been making much progress with Sov and everything, but their last war that they fought with Fraternity and not Fireco, but with Winter Coalition. That was an 8-month long war where, as Billy described it, they were chipping away at a brick wall, one piece at a time. And after months and months of chipping away, the wall came crashing down, and they just tore through all of Winter Coast space.
Right.
And so the biggest thing that the Matani is saying is that, goons, Test isn't making any progress, PanFam is doing all the legwork. Well, again, taking Fountain, first off, no entity in the game has been able to successfully hold Fountain. Second, Initiative was heavily outgunned and heavily outnumbered. So with those two things taken into consideration, Fountain was going to fall. Whereas you've got the South, where Test is outgunned and outnumbered, and now they're fighting both, or actively fighting both Init and Goons. Whereas PanFam is just trying to clean up Fountain.
So now Fountain has fallen, right? So that's historical. Like, people know that you can't hold Fountain very well just because of the ingress and egress ports. The connected regions that just allow for an easy invasion, basically.
Correct.
Why was the decision made in that case to spearhead Fountain instead of spearheading Aquarius, for example, which geographically is the only way into Delph without a jump?
Because Test started this, right, with the whole nip slip.
The great nip slip, as it's been called.
I heard about that.
So they canceled with a 2-week notice. They canceled it. So the overall strategic plan, in a nutshell, is Pandemic Horde, Pandemic Legion, and C. Dot would be in the war on the northern front in Fountain. Brave, Legacy Co. basically with Test and Fraternity and Friends would be in the southern front, Aquarius period basis. We've been killing it in Fountain because Goons haven't been coming up to us to fight. So we only had the Init to fight, and they retreated after 2.5 weeks. At the beginning of the war, Goons started by saying floodplain or Fortress Fountain, Fortress Delph, right? And they made a point to say Test is the bad guys, Test is who we don't like. Pandemic Horde, Pandemic Legion, NC Dot, those guys are competent, but they're going to be covering for Test and their incompetence. And I think they doubled down on that by focusing so much of their defense on Test, so that way they had the ammo to say, hey, look, Test is doing nothing while you guys are doing everything up north. Haha, your allies suck, you should betray them.
Yeah, so essentially what happened when the Mittani had his State of the Union, he basically said, he went on this whole speech about how, we've been fighting our historical enemies, Bob, now known as PanFam. That's not exactly what he said, but that's kind of like the gist of what he said, for the past 14 years. And we have burned and destroyed them and beat them into the dirt. Essentially, Mittani said, we are going to close this chapter on the history of Goons. Like, we are officially done with essentially PanFam. Essentially, you guys are no longer our enemies, our sworn enemies anymore. And instead have decided that now Legacy is their hated enemy and mortal enemy that they will just set out to destroy.
He's like the worst writer ever. Let me tell you that. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not the people that hate you. So.
Yeah, and from my perspective, it's not that I disagree with what Jayson and Karama said, but I just have a little bit of a different perspective. Maybe they run concurrently, but I think it's a good thing that we focused on Fountain first. Pandemic being that what great morale to set for your line members. Even like your person that has been here forever is going to look at that and say, like, what a great job that we did at Fountain. Even if it was never going to hold, the fact that Goons is like Fortress Fountain and we broke it in a month, what a great way to start out having high morale before we go into the grind that is going to be Delph. So now we're all confident, we're ready to go, and on the other side, Test. Like, I don't actually know anybody in Test, but I can't imagine just spending an entire month and gaining no ground, how the morale difference is going to be.
Well, they're also looking at it like, hey, we're doing our part. We're keeping Goons occupied down here so our buddies up north are able to make progress. Like, they're still getting like positive morale out of it, even though they are constantly being just like banging their head or going into the wood chipper, basically.
And I guess if you look at it from the fact that they started this war from their home territory, where there was already an established border between the two space, it would make sense that, Goons has their defenses up. It would make sense that it's going to be a slow, hellish burn into Delve from Test's territory, because they've been facing off against this I'll just say demilitarized zone where they're angry stares every day, ready for the invasion. So.
Yeah, and so I can actually speak as an old member of Test on this. During the whole frat war, like, my morale was fine because life pretty much didn't change other than we went on a few strat ops every other day. So I can probably say that test life really hasn't changed. There's still people ratting and mining and doing all that stuff. They've got a Chinese TZ Alliance Army of Mangoes that is essentially tasked with defending their space. So they can mine in their space and then go up and fight, which personally to me isn't exactly much of a tactical, tactically it doesn't make sense, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Billy on, was because being able to attack and having such strong Chinese time zone alliances, like we've got Army of Mangoes and Fraternity, right? And what the Imperium has, Decreus and Ranger Regiment.
Ranger, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and also add in the fact that Army of Mangoes, their leader, Fulcrum, like, he's good friends with Rooks and Kings. Like, Rooks and Kings taught him and his alliance how to play the game back on Serenity. So, like, that's huge. And the fact that they're using Army of Mangoes as a way to defend their space makes absolutely no sense. Like, Army of Mangoes should be taking the fight to goons in Chinese time zone, because that would just add another layer of pressure to the already, like, attacking them from everywhere at once. Because just looking at the map, you've got Fountain that's under attack, Quirius that's under attack, and you've got Period bases that's under attack. Literally, you've got the hordes at the gates, the hordes being us, storming everywhere at once. And one of the things that I noticed on Trash Talk Tuesday, one of the other shows, was that when PanFam was invading Fountain, it wasn't one of those things where it's like, oh, every once in a while we're getting pinged for these big timers. No, it was literally every single day, 24 hours a day, they were getting attacked by Horde and PanFam as a whole. Like, it was just nonstop throwing things at the initiative, to the point where, yeah, they were going to break eventually. And initiative leadership, and this was part of the reason why I have such a huge respect for Init, is that they didn't sugarcoat it. Like, Sister Bliss pretty much said in his State of the Alliance, sorry, it's weird. The name Sister Bliss really throws me off. Anyway,
of course,
he basically said, we're going to lose Fountain, but we're going to fight like hell. So, mad props to Init. They've told the truth from the beginning. Unless you discount Fountain Frank. But Fountain Frank's just a meme.
So you guys are all coming in from all angles. You guys are hitting Fountain, you guys are hitting PB, and you guys are hitting Quirius. Not much has been made in Quirius so far, and not a single timer so far in Delve, right? I mean, it'll happen eventually, but just not yet. So I mean, you can come out, you can close the gates around them, right? And you can make sure that their outs are covered, right? Their gate outs. But you're not going to invade Delve through YTAC 2, for example. You're just gonna get like shit bombed on the gate. It's just not gonna happen. So is there like, I mean, I'm assuming you're gonna go the ancient. You guys are gonna follow the ancient rules of invading Delve, and that's like staging out of 1DH or ATAC E. Has any headway been made into that? Is there a beachhead yet?
So I can't speak for the leadership or what's being planned or our future stuff, but from the logistical standpoint, I have run some things that I can't talk about, jump freightering them down into NPC Delve. So people are making plans down there. What it ultimately is going to be will be seen, but let's just say there are things that go boom being staged down there from the friendly side, because the corporations that I run logistics for are all PanFam oriented, so it's definitely friendly stuff that I'm shipping down there. And so I've never invaded Delve. I've never been really into Delve, so I don't know if you can invade from NPC Delve, but yeah.
Generally speaking, I mean, listen, people have done it different ways. Obviously, there's people that have been playing the game before I was playing that have maybe done it different ways that I'm not sure about. But generally speaking, the only way to invade Delve is through Delve. And it might sound weird, it might not make sense, but generally speaking, you need this stronghold You need a stronghold and 1DH A-Techy NPC delve, or you need to hold fake Quarius to be able to jump stuff in properly. I mean, outside of that, you're gonna have 6,000 goons sitting on a gate just waiting to just rape you as you come in. So that would be like the only way. I mean, I would imagine, unless there's some changes that have been made, which I'm not sure about, but I'm pretty sure I'm up to speed on at least the jump changes, right? So I'm interested to see on how that would play out.
So one of the biggest things too, with Delve being the way it is from where their home base is 1DQ, they can pretty much jump anywhere with their super fleet. And their super fleet, we're not talking about the stuff we saw in World War B, the first one. We're talking about literally 1,000 Titans sitting in 1DQ, ready to just jump on anything. And so if we look at what's been going on with Quarius, Vili was talking about how their main goal so far has been to essentially cut off Quarius and cut the jump bridge network.
Right. That's good. That's a good step right there.
If we actually turn back the clock a little bit to roughly a month ago, Brave did. Well, I don't think it was Brave, but there was an operation done where 26 iHubs, or was it 70? Yeah, it was
76 timers.
Yeah, 76 timers were created in Quarius over the course of like a night. And essentially all of those were iHubs in an attempt to basically destroy and offline critical infrastructure in Quarius. Because again, you still need to hold the infrastructural hub for a certain amount of time before you can get those powerful defensive structures such as jump gates and Sino jammers. Also regular Sinos. Sino field generators. What happened, and this was part of the Matani spin. Actually, no, not the Matani. This was actually Brisk Grubal spin. But Brisk made the comment of, okay, 70-something timers, that's just all troll toasting. Like, they're not going to follow up on that.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing.
Play along with that, I would kind of agree, because you're not going to follow up on 76 timers.
Here's the thing, though. We did. And in a single weekend, we took 26 iHubs in Quarius. And all of those defensive structures, all that defensive infrastructure was cut off and essentially reset. Now, goons have, from what I know, have taken back many of the iHubs, but the damage is already done. That strategic timer the clock has been reset. You now have to hold that for like, what was it, like a month?
That's almost like, it's a good infrastructure headshot. It's actually very impressive, actually. I mean, you're not going to get 78, right? But just getting even a third or 2/4, I guess that would be 50%, is nuts. I mean, if you're taking out half, then, realistically speaking, you taking down 100% of the jump bridges, right? Because you need two systems taking out half, So that's pretty good.
To my knowledge.
And it is just, they're just out of there completely, right? They're just hanging out with goons now in Delve, and they're crabbing as best they can before, I guess, the storm hits them.
Yeah, which if you look at a defensive standpoint, having them all down there in Delve is just going to be more of a nightmare because they're just more concentrated.
Well, one of the things that we've actually seen now is that, so from the beginning of the war, I've been saying that once Init loses their space and no longer has to defend, they're going to go on the offensive. And that's exactly what we saw. Over the past week, they've gone through and they've just torn up various systems. They killed a Sino beacon from Evictus, and they've just been tearing stuff up. I don't know the exact kills or the exact damage they've done. Brisk, if you're watching, if you would like to come in and educate us on all the damage that it's done, we would really appreciate it.
A lot of that damage is being done by hitting the good guys' ratting and crabbing efforts. I think they have a Kiki fleet basically every day running through Pandemic Horde staging or Pandemic Horde home systems and stuff like that, and Obviously, we don't have enough people to defend that. There's no super cap umbrella over there because everybody's over here. So they're able to just run free and grab, 10, 15 bill worth of kills every day over in our ratting space.
Man, I literally lost a carrier last night. It wasn't to in it though. It was to a random small game.
Aw.
My first actual capital loss that I count after how many years of owning Cap? Like a long time.
You're doing it wrong then.
Yeah.
I've never lost a capital ship, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Nice.
Wow.
And mostly because I'm the FC usually, and I'll be like, hey guys, we gotta go, and then I'll fucking bounce out of there. But
Gee,
Follow me.
follow me, guys.
just like pickles.
So someone brought up Kiki fleets. So this doesn't really have to do with what we were talking about before, but just since we brought it up, out of curiosity, how has the Triglavian ships recently, like in the past maybe 6-7 months, like played out in the greater like strategic war effort? Like, have they been used other than harassment fleets? How are they playing out like gameplay wise?
They're really good for any bulk HP targets, whether that's
Yeah.
caps or structures.
So bashing, especially bashing, I've seen fleets of Lashaks of just a single person just multi-boxing Lashaks going in and hitting structure.
Attaboy.
Yeah, they're really great for structure killing. The downside is their price tag, which at the beginning of the war, Munins specifically, the price went up so high on them that it would actually have been more ISK efficient to just take big, huge Triglavian fleets out. The ships would have cost less fully fit than Munins. The price has since come down a little bit, so it's not quite the case anymore, but apparently we're doing Ravens now. So that's a thing.
So if I actually look at our topics, one of the things I wanted to get to, Cyber, are you familiar with the Triglavian invasion?
So one of the reasons that I actually really didn't want to keep playing anymore, honestly, is because I saw CCP was focusing on PvE stuff, and that's not what this game is about. So I have turned a blind eye, minus the ships, to the Triglavian invasion. I will tell you this much: when I was trying to start up again and kind of just play by myself, trying to, make sure I'm not awful, I was kind of stopped a few times by Triglavian invasions. But I mean, me not being a PvE person and not really caring whatsoever, I really didn't know like what they were doing, why they're there. So no, I have no clue.
Oh boy. Well, you're in for a treat because this stage of the Triglavian invasions, though the invasions themselves are very much PvE, it is starting, especially this week, from what I hear. We'll get more into that, but having some serious PvP implications.
So just a little TLDR of what can happen. When a system is invaded by Triglavians, it starts basically a stellar reconnaissance. And essentially that's a big event where you've got Edencom forces fighting Triglavian forces. And players can essentially influence how this goes by running sites. And in those sites, you basically warp to them and you kill the Triglavian or Edencom rat. Edencom comes in the form of like various Empire-specific ships. So you'll get a Mar Navy, Caldari Navy, Minmatar Navy, Galente Federation, like all of their Empire-specific ships will be in that site. And your goal is to kill them. Now, instead of your security status being, hit, since they are quote-unquote Edencom ships, your standings will then change with Edencom. So when you kill Edencom ships, which are Empire ships essentially, you will decrease your standing with Edencom, and you will increase your standing with Triglavian. By the way, you probably don't know, Edencom is essentially is a massive entity of all four empires coming together to fight the Triglavian invasion.
That was my next question. Okay.
Yeah, so that's Edencom, and then Triglavians are the Triglavians. So you've got two distinct player groups. You've got the Edencom Defense Initiative, which are players that support Edencom, and you've got the Triglavian something
collective.
Yeah, you've got but the group of players has something like its own distinct name. Anyway, so you've got those two groups of players that are basically trying to out-crab each other in these systems.
Okay.
And depending on which way it flips, or depending on who does more ratting, will basically affect a progress bar. And once the progress bar goes 100% for either side, it goes into the next stage of the invasion.
So
If neither of the sides are able to get to 100% in 3 days, the site despawns. However,
I'm trying to understand. So like as I understand, so there's a PvE component to the Triglavian invasions, like like always, right? So just like filaments, yada yada. That side's PvE. However, does this only affect null security space, this whole mechanic? Like,
this is in Highsec.
This is in what?
Yep.
Yeah,
so
this
here's
is
the big part. The big part of this is if the Triglavians push it from the first step to their side, it drops the Concord response, not the actual security status of the system. It drops the Concord response as if it's in nullsec. So what we had, I took part in the first Triglavian invasion of Rarivas just because I wanted to be a part of it. It was this big thing, the first system to fall. And what happens is as soon as it drops, when you're jumping around, if you don't pay attention to those notifications, all of a sudden you jump into a system in the middle of Highsec where you can be shot at freely with absolutely zero Concord response. And so what we had was freighters. We had like literally everything just dying. People were camping gates. You'd literally have a freighter loaded with billions jump into the system and then like just instantly get attacked by everybody in the system.
Yeah, with that, that's cool. I can approve.
So, and here's the thing: there are multiple stages. All right. So, for Edencom, there's Edencom Minor Victory, Edencom Bulwark, I think is what it's called, and then Edencom Fortress. Edencom Fortress is like this system is one for Edencom, right? When you finish, actually, Cyler, are you better at explaining it? You think?
Yeah. I'm basically as a logistics dude, I'm.
Where'd he go? Hello?
Cyler?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the last thing you heard me say?
As a logistics
dude.
Okay. So I'm all nullsec, highsec, and there's one additional state which can throw you off unless you know what you're doing. It's an Edencom minor victory, where the Triglavians sent something, and the Edencom fortresses quote responded, and then the Triglavians completely left. So those systems are usually sino-jammed, which is the only remaining leftover, I want to say, and they're usually in low-sec, which is becoming quite a pain in the butt. So that's the only thing I just wanted to add. You can keep going on, Karama. You're doing pretty good.
Okay, so there are 6 stages for a system. There's actually 5. Yeah, there's 5 stages. There is the stellar reconnaissance. Was it luminality? Okay, you know what? I'm just going to pull this up. But essentially, once one side makes it and is able to flip it in the initial progress bar, and that initial progress bar is the same thing as you would see in like an incursion. Once you flip it, that enters the next stage, and right underneath it, it essentially becomes a game of tug of war. All right, each side is basically trying to outrat each other to make their side of the bar fill up. Right, and as their side of the bar fills up, they basically start to win. Right, and there are multiple stages. The first stage, of course, being it can either become, for Edencom, a bulwark. You know what? I'm just going to pull it up. So if someone else wants to talk while I figure this thing out, that'd be much appreciated.
So I can just talk because it's, again, affecting my life in EVE quite a bit. Once a system is completely safe from the Triglavians, it's pretty much safe for players to go through. However, if it falls to the Triglavians, that system is basically, it goes back to the regular security status, but it's basically becomes hostile to anybody with a negative standing with the Triglavians. And we're talking about NPCs that I think it's overkill. You don't need that many Triglavians to instantly blap your ships, but you jump into a Triglavian 1 system and you're instantly scrammed, ECM, webbed, and killed by literally dozens and dozens of Triglavians. So once a system falls, you basically have to avoid it, which is where this week's Triglavian invasion has hit home with the attack on the system Niarja, which is a major stop along the way from Jeddah to Amar. And then one change CCP did additionally make this last week or two was before the key to being able to safely fly through these systems was to get positive standings with the Triglavians, so the Triglavians wouldn't attack you. But at the time, Edencom would not attack you either, unless you like went hardcore full negative standings with them. But CCP just made a change now where if you have any positive standings with the Triglavians, now Edencom will instantly kill you when you go into these systems. So now you're having people, for example, like me, who I can't go into a system that has been invaded because I don't know who's winning. Is it the Triglavians or is it Edencom? And if it's Edencom winning, and I go in there with a freighter, I'm gonna get scrammed and killed.
So that's kind of the whole dynamic seems very interesting actually, and I'm happy they expanded upon it. And again, this is coming from somebody like who's basically at this point from the outside looking in, right? Because I haven't been active. So it seems interesting. However, I feel like if there's somebody trying to perform like a social objective within the game, and by social objective I mean like just alliance versus alliance warfare, right? And they're trying to get to that objective. It almost feels kind of like there's like an RNG element that might stifle you from actually completing that. It almost sounds like it's essentially it's like a speed bump for people that don't want to deal with it, but it's a nice source of content for people that actually do want to deal with it because it seems pretty fleshed out. Is there?
And it's a major speed bump.
How are the ISK making like within those sites? Like if you're doing it as your primary content driver, right? Is there like what's the incentive for doing so? Is it LP? Is it ISK? Is it drops?
So it's a little bit of both. You get LP for completing those sites in favor of whichever you are fighting for, and there are rare anomalies, combat anomalies that spawn, and there are also rare ore anomalies that spawn. So there are some ore available in Triglavian invaded systems that aren't available in any other, any other part of space. What they actually contain, I'm not quite sure what the percentage of ores are because I haven't been out there. And then the last thing that now you get from these sites are parts that allow you to make Edencom ships. So they're only available in these systems, from what I understand. And the last time I checked, the cruisers alone were nearly running $500 million per ship. So very profitable for somebody who wants to go collect those resources and then put together those ships.
Okay, so I actually pulled up the Eve Uni article on it, and I actually linked it in the chat for our viewers and in the Discord for us. So there are multiple phases. There's the Stellar Reconnaissance, Redoubts and Bulwarks, Edencom Fortress, Escalating Luminality, and Final Luminality. So the Redoubts and Bulwarks and the Fortress, those are for Edencom. Like those are pro Edencom. And then the Escalating Luminality, the first and Final Luminality, those are for the Triglavian. So Stellar Reconnaissance first phase, basically the Stellar Reconnaissance is the first phase the system can be in. In this phase, neither Edencom nor the Triglavian Collective have the upper hand. Capsulators can join either side to help them establish a foothold. So essentially, during the Stellar Reconnaissance, the Triglavians and Edencom are trying to establish a foothold in the system. Then, depending on who is able to establish a foothold, it progresses towards the next phase. And that's divided into two separate little things. For Edencom, you've got the redoubts and bulwarks, which are the progress towards the Edencom victory. And this is divided into two stages. You've got the redoubt, which basically the stellar reconnaissance happens. Basically, this happens when the stellar reconnaissance is won by the Edencom side. It escalates into a redoubt phase. And in this, Edencom has the upper hand, but the Triglavians, like the Triglavian players, they can still turn the tide at this point. The system gains system-wide effect, and the combat sites become harder. Right? If Edencom still achieves victory, it then progresses to a bulwark, which is basically the second stage of the redoubts and bulwark. The Triglavians, at this stage, the Triglavians still can turn the tide, but it basically means that Edencom is one step closer to a fortress. And the fortress basically is what happens when the Triglavians win, or the Edencom gets both through the redoubt and the bulwark. Then, of course, you've got the Triglavians, which, if they win the stellar reconnaissance, they go through two luminalities, which are essentially the exact same thing for Edencom, except for the Triglavian. And if it reaches final luminality, the system essentially becomes nullsec, and different system-wide effects that affect how your ships behave, which is honestly really cool, are put into place.
Mm-hmm. That's not the physical, like the physical. Well, it's a number on a screen, but I guess the physical security status though doesn't change, right? So you're like, you wouldn't be able to light a Sino, for example.
Correct.
No, you wouldn't. But the Concord response is essentially gone. Another thing too is that depending on which rats you shoot by side, because you side with a side by either repairing one side's rats and doing local reps, or shooting the other side's rats. So let's say I wanted to side with the Triglavians, I would shoot Edencom rats and repair Triglavian ships. If that were to happen, then Edencom ships would automatically shoot me, and this is actually kind of new. But if you have a high enough standing, I think it's 3.0, the people you sided with will actually provide you reps. So
it's 5.0.
5.0?
Yes.
Okay. And that's huge.
Yeah, shoot. If you want rats to buff you. And apparently they kind of developed a new AI for these. You know, the diamond rats that were going around and actually like doing structure bashes.
These are that on steroids.
Actually behaving properly. Yeah, these are enhanced AI that have like learning capabilities.
Yeah, and they will pod you.
Yes. They're scary.
Here's the thing too. So the one thing that I'm terrified of and that I think is really, really cool are the final stages, the final luminality and Edencom Fortress, because that's when they start to deploy static defenses. Edencom will basically deploy gun stars around gates, which essentially serve as to kill any player that enters the system via the gate that is essentially has a bad standing with Edencom. If you're neutral to Edencom, then they won't shoot you. The Triglavians, on the other hand, they deploy wereposts, which are essentially the same thing as a gun star, but they will shoot anyone that's not allied to them. So essentially, there are turrets on gates now that will kill players that are aligned with either side. Along with that, you also have rats. So essentially, it's a permanent superpowered gate camp in these final luminality systems and redoubts and bulwarks. Or no, not redoubts and bulwarks, and in Edencom fortresses. Which has made things very interesting.
And so the whole thing is that if the Triglavians get a foothold in high security space, we're not not 100% sure. Obviously, CCP's been tight-lipped with it, but we're like 80% sure the Triglavians are going to be a completely new established race in the world. And when you're doing these events, you have to protect NPC ships, and when you warp to them, they're essentially brand new ship models not available to players. And we're talking like legit Triglavian, like freighters and industrial ships, and so that's what I'm most excited about, is like a newly established empire.
Oh yeah, I am too, especially with like I personally, when I first saw this, I wanted to get involved on the Triglavian side because fuck Highsec. But then they attacked Niarja, which is what we're going to be getting into. And I was like, okay, I need to defend Niarja because this is going to completely destroy our trade routes, which is actually something we should get into. Now that Niarja is basically nullsec and people are camping it, and the Triglavians have basically turrets set up at the gates that will kill anyone that's not allied with the Triglavian. How has that affected logistics from your point of view, Cyler?
So, first question I have for you is what was Niarja security status wise?
It was a 0.5 system.
So it doesn't affect me, and I'll tell you why. I jump freighter pretty much exclusively, so I can't sino into Niarja to begin with. That being said, I don't know. Do you mind if I talk about what the Triglavians have done to me besides Niarja?
Go ahead.
So I can distinctly remember being so frustrated, being unable to get into Amar to pick up a contract I had one day because there was an incursion in my main system that is a null-sec to high-sec transition. And the incursion had a Sino jammer that you can't kill. In the next 3 systems that I could jump to, all had Edencom Sino jammers in low sec because they're considered minor victories where it never really took place, the PVE, but they put Sino jammers in there, and I had to basically solo uh, Edencom Sino jammers, and I'm still salty that I didn't get kill mails for them. But it took 2 hours of my life killing these Sino jammers and the responding Edencom rats just so I could Sino into an NPC station and then gate all the way to the trade hub. So while Niarja, it might not be affecting me, mostly because I'm a nullsec and jump freighter pilot. I can tell you from the um, standpoint of Red Frog that I'm actually on the waitlist for, it is causing havoc for regular freighters because with the changes that CCP made to Edencom now shooting you, previously they had recommended all of their pilots have positive standings with the Triglavians. Well, now none of their freighter pilots that had those standings can get through anything with Edencom. So now you're getting high-sec freight corporations that are scrambling, trying to find that magic number where you can't get shot by either side. And that's really the most frustrating part about this, is that I mean, there's always a way around. So don't get me wrong. So far, so good. But it's costing um, commodities and shipping costs to go up. And from people in the nullsec side that have no idea this stuff is going on, they're getting frustrated with the price of stuff going up. And it's just because it takes so long now to get stuff set up. For example, even though my jump freighter doesn't go into these systems, I still have to get my Sino tunes. So anytime I have to create a new route, I have to try to get Sinos into systems. And I did have a very close call. Sorry, last thing, I did have a very close call the other day where I had the way the overview setting is, if you're one system away from a Triglavian invasion, it doesn't really show you that triangle warning that there's a Triglavian invasion. So I was in a low sec system on my way to Jeddah, and I still had my emergency Sino up, so I was good. But I jumped into a system, not realizing that my main that I had my jump freighter in was positive to Triglavians, and the Edencom had won that system. So my jump freighter, loaded with like 4 billion in contracts on the way to Jeddah, got locked. And fortunately, I'm quick enough jumping to my emergency Sino. I did so before they scrammed me. So
So at first, I mean, the speed bump, I didn't really like the speed bump, to be honest with you. I thought that it was going to actually not ruin, but make my type of gameplay not as enjoyable for myself and the people that I would like to play with, right? But it kind of seems to me that from a gameplay perspective, like it really, it made some changes to like the staticness of where you get your materials from, which I mean, just that is enough to really change the way the game works in a lot of ways. Like if it basically means you need more localized industry in Highsec and trade hubs in Highsec in different areas to kind of avoid being bottlenecked by
Yeah,
the major trade routes, and that really will make a big change in how basically anything is done in nullsec. And I think you're right. I think that the people that are living in nullsec, much like I was before I listened to you explain it, um, they don't really know that that's how it's going to change until they decide to go into Highsec one day to pick up a ship and realize they can't go to Jita anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just totally different. It's like, whoa, it's like there's a wall here, but before there was not a wall. And I think you're going to see a lot of activity actually spur up in like Rents, for example, and Heck, which has been dead forever just because of that reason.
Yeah, and while Niarja doesn't affect me directly currently, oh my gosh, pardon me, regular freighters are there are more regular freighters than there are jump freighters. That's how important high-sec logistics is, and I didn't realize that until I got into the game. So it's really, really shaking up the high-sec game, which is why this is on our topic today, Niarja being invaded, and it is being. For what I understand, I was in the first system to flip, and that was a fight tooth and nail. And from what I understand, Niarja is as well. Because if Edencom wins, things are back to normal. But if the Triglavians win, that's one route that is permanently done for regular freighters,
Right.
and that's going to cause that shipping to go up exponentially.
Yeah, people should really be looking at this from the game changed. That's a crazy. That actually is probably. I'm kind of trying to think about it a little more. Probably one of the singular most important changes that the game needed to really shake itself up, and it almost feels like shaking up nullsec even more wasn't the answer. It's hit the supply lines, right?
Yeah,
People should really be thinking about it as an opportunity to potentially do something else, even in the game. Like if you're in nullsec forever, suddenly there's a. It's like discovering a new land almost, right? Like suddenly like there's regions that are going to be important for trade where previously they were not. It's going to be a gold rush. I'm sure
yeah.
people are capitalizing on it already.
And you're getting. There was a podcast I was listening to, and they were talking about how you actually are now getting nullsec groups who are responding and fighting for one side or the other based on what is of more strategic value to them. And I want to say Raravas, want to say, if I'm remembering correctly, Test had a lot of members pushing Raravas to the Triglavians because it made sense for them. And the most concerning part for me is what's going to happen if the Triglavians do become the next race. What is going to be affected? Like, is it basically going to be like Triglavian systems now? Do you have to have Triglavian jump freighters or Triglavian freighters to get through safely? What's the mechanic going to be? And that's the biggest unknown right now. And like you said, people in nullsec might not realize the repercussions. And um, yeah.
Well, we're already seeing it. Like the route from Jita to Amar went from 8 jumps to 45 jumps. Like,
Oof.
that's
I'm
huge.
just so glad that I have a jump freighter after hearing that.
And
And
honestly,
it actually might be cheaper, believe it or not, to jump freighter from Jita to Amar rather than taking regular freighter routes now.
well, and you look at it too. Someone from Code was actually on stream talking about it, and essentially, from his perspective, his whole thing was, CCP pretty much just the players pretty much just told Code, hey, you no longer need to split your forces, your gankers in Niarja and Uedama. You can just all congregate in Uedama and just gank there every single day. So I think this might make Uedama just that much more dangerous.
You want to hear something that's really could potentially be no bueno? Is that the star in Jeddah is the same type of star that your Triglavians are trying to form systems in.
So Cyberking, just for a bit of context, the Triglavians are attacking certain systems with certain stars. I believe it's Blue Star.
Correct. There are a couple of different stars, but blue stars have, and I'm not sure what the material
Isogen
is.
5, I think.
Yeah, so blue stars are rich in that. So what they do, the whole premise around them invading these systems, is the world arc comes in and establishes basically a space station over the sun.
A Triglavian
And in
space
each
station.
stage, in each stage it comes in and builds a little more. And it basically shoots a laser into the sun and it's sucking up this material. And you can actually see the color of the sun change as it progresses, which is pretty cool. And Jitta has a blue star. So is Jitta going to be attacked? One thing that I recently saw is that the brand new station that they're building in Jitta is going to be like the final battle with the Triglavians over the brand new trade hub they're building.
Final
And Lord
battle.
help us all.
Dude, if Jitta falls, what the fuck is that gonna do?
Should fall because it'll just scramble. It'll scramble everything. Everything will be scrambled. It doesn't matter what the hell's going on in nullsec because it really doesn't matter what the political situation is in nullsec. It's going to really scramble everything up in every region outside of Jitta.
But here's the thing: the Tranquility Trade Towers. That's
the thing
right
is
next to Jitta.
That's attackable. So you have people that have stored things in Jitta's station that, I mean, it's for right now, let's just assume that the station's never going away. None of the NPC stations have ever disappeared in any Triglavian systems. But now you're going to have people who can never, as long as it's in Triglavian hands, they can never go get their stuff. The Triglavian systems that have fallen are always hell camped by Triglavians. You cannot, unless you have positive standings, get in there. So, I mean, I'm pro Triglavian, so the whole map can turn Triglavian. I'll be fine with that. I'll do what I got to do.
I like it.
Yeah, but it would be the single best worst thing that happens to the game if Jitta falls. I'm all for it.
I actually agree. And with that, I mean, I don't know how long you guys usually go for here, but I enjoyed myself here today very much. I've been here for about an hour and a half. I learned a lot, and I'm kind of inspired to start playing again. So, God damn it, Kurama.
C-Dot's recruiting, man.
Oh, not again.
All right.
Apply. I'll
Cyber.
accept you right now.
Yeah, no, literally here. Just hit go into Eve, apply to Concordiats, and we'll get you sorted.
I guess. I mean, yeah, I'll see you guys soon then, I guess. I'll be on next time too. Riker. Do you guys do this every couple days?
We do this every week. Actually, that leads me into a good what's that called? When you shill.
Segue.
I'm gonna chill myself. Segue. Just a reminder, guys, we do this show every weekend. We do it both Saturday and Sunday. We stream at 0100 Sunday Eve time, as well as 2300 Sunday Eve time. So yeah, 2 shows a week. Except the show we did last night is way more spinning and way more shit posting.
No, it's good. Sometimes you need that in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you usually need that in the mix. You need that. It's like the undertone.
Then we never get past like the first few topics that are planned out for the week.
But that's good, to be completely honest. That means that we're talking.
Good discussion, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still stick around if we want to talk about the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, it's just me. It's just me. I just didn't know when I was getting into. So, gentlemen, thank you for having me. I'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, it was good having you on.
It's good having you on. So, the next topic that we're going to cover is, let me pull up the show notes.
So we definitely went out of order, but I think we covered a lot of it so far, which is good. It was a very natural flow.
It really was. So, Battle of Otak P Keepstar, pretty self-explanatory. We won. High fives all around.
What I'm digging about these fleets is that I can join at work, get signed in, get my fighters on the Keepstar, get some damage on it. Then I drive home and sit on my computer, and it's still going on because of tie-dye.
Jesus.
I tried to get in my first battle the other day with that KVN one where the node crashed. Fortunately, I didn't because I would have had to deal with that. But I just haven't been able to PvP lately. Like, you guys have no idea how busy like this war front can make you from a logistics side.
Well, you're doing God's work.
Yeah, more things need to die.
You're doing the Godfather's work. Let's go with that. We are a pro PanFam show, so praise the Godfather.
I always I'm like I don't want to say I'm rooting for goons because I'm not. I absolutely hate them. But every battle report I read, I'm like looking over, like, is this gonna make me money yet or what? What's going on?
It's definitely making some people in Concordiat money.
Yeah. So here's the thing. We have been making a bunch of stuff. Unfortunately, like as soon as we get fully stocked, like Ravens now become the new thing. So we've got like a bunch of munins. A lot have sold, a lot haven't because now we've got a doctrine switch. And after that DC, when Jayson was like, all of these fighters, like they're just gone. I got a message from somebody, Fish, in our corp. He's like, yo, get me a price on fighters. So I log in and I look at the market in staging, and I'm like, yo, dude, like I can get a decent price on fighters, and I'm sure you could build them, but there's like 1,000 fighters on market, so that's not worth it.
So is there actually a because I know there are ECs being set up, but one thing that I want to do, and I think that's something that Concordia should definitely invest in, is getting an industrial center set up in our staging. So because I know Horde has already set up a few engineering complexes. I personally want to set up an Asbel and just have it be like an end all, like this thing can build everything.
Yeah, I know from just talking with industry people that because I have to coordinate with them to see if it's going to be profitable to. Oh, no worries, Jason. I got to see if it's profitable for them to ship it. And the one thing is that T1s are way more profitable to build in site. Anything above Tech 1s, it's just the cost to ship versus the cost to build, unless you're making like big, huge bulk deals, is just not worth it.
Yeah.
But man, I'm not super into industry, but I mean, it can't hurt putting down, the more corp stuff we have out there, the better.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm all for like helping out to just put down an Asbel, and an Asbel's pretty cheap. It's like $5.
Yeah. And one thing we should do too is take advantage of the Highsec markets and find some good systems to put down some structures.
I'm all for it. But yeah, no, I honestly think that like the corp could make a ton of money. Anyway, Jayson had to go. Let's see here. That was kind of just a small little tangent. So
yeah, I think the one thing that we didn't talk about that I'm seeing on here is about our Aster House of Very Musky Husky, which is just absolutely amazing.
So for those of you who don't know, yeah, that's a Concordiat Citadel. I don't know how to say this, but I'm kind of happy that the node crashed because that just means that it's going to get used more. For those of you on the stream that don't know, I pretty much paid for that entire Citadel using my own ISK, and I wanted it to get used. And this node crash means that it's just going to get used more. Hopefully, though, this time when it's gunned, it doesn't only succeed to kill friendly. Because if you look at it and you look at the kills, like I think it's the third top killer, the third top used ship in our corporation right now. No, not third, fourth or fifth. I keep moving the goalpost. Anyway, the fourth or fifth top used ship in our corp right now is a stand-up light bomb launcher. Like, damn. And here's the thing: nobody in our corp was actually gunning it. It was a Horde dude gunning it.
That's awesome.
So a Horde dude made our kill board that much better by whoring on friendly kill mails. using bomb. So yeah, hopefully that thing can kill more than it's worth. And the reason why I'm not saying the name of the Horde dude is because, well, I don't want to be caught shit talking allies. Like, I will shit talk any entity, but not individual members of that entity. That's the one rule I have.
Yeah, that's a good rule to have.
So, because like if I say something bad about Test, like that's different than me saying something bad about Villy. Like Villy, like say anything you want about Villy's current performance in this war. Like I still think he's a great leader and an even cooler dude. So
Absolutely. I love those pictures that we've been posting where like big huge battles, and then there's our citadel with our flag just like
I know, like that's been so great. And actually, we should probably get those and post those in this Discord.
Heck yeah.
Which, by the way, if any of you guys watching out there in Twitch land want to get involved, let me actually post the Discord again. I really got to get a bot set up to just control or do all this. Just constantly posting the Discord links and all that stuff.
Yeah, I have a bot set up on my Highsec Corps page, and it posts. You can set it up to post all sorts of stuff. That's what's the nice thing about Discord. I'll tell you that.
Sweet. But no, not a Discord bot, a Twitch bot. Like NetBot?
That's cool. I have no idea about those bots, but if it's anything like Discord, that's cool.
Anyway, guys, I think that about wraps up the show. This has been episode 3 of Between Two Keepstars. I don't know the name that I put on Twitch, but it's probably something witty. Just kidding, I'm really not that witty. Anyway, guys, remember, Concordiat is always recruiting. And if you're maybe want to get into EVE Online, maybe you should hit us up. No, not maybe. You should, hit us up. Yeah, right? This has been Between Two Keepstars. You stay pretty, New Eden. Did I just steal that from Brisk?
I have no idea.
Because he says stay classy. Anyway, fly dangerously, and we'll see you guys next week on Between Two Keepstars.